as. So I'm just gonna kind of make this as a more hot topic video, but also kind of general. Why is the cost of living so high? This could apply to why it costs so much money to pay your bills, pay rent, the cost of living, the cost of stuff. And it has everything to do with money creation. So let's see how money's created. First of all, you have a bank. Banks do this thing called fractional reserve banking. It's really a big scam. It's a big scam that banks thought up when they first started banking, when people would bring their gold to the bank and put them in deposits, and people and the banks gave out these banknotes to people, and people just started using those banknotes as paper, those banknotes as paper money, I guess that's what I was gonna say. And they realized that since people were just using those banknotes as money, you know, the old model for banking, the old business model was, you know, have people put in their deposits of gold, give them banknotes, and you know, there's usually an agreement like you let the bank hold on to a certain amount of time and they pay some interest. But then the bank would loan out some of that gold, charge people interest, more interest than they would give people, and they make a little bit of profit. But since people started using the paper, the banknotes as money themselves, the banks were like, hey, we don't even gotta give out any gold, we can just print more banknotes and hand them to people as loans. And that's what they started doing. That's fractional reserve banking. Money's created that way because cumulatively there is more banknotes, there are more banknotes, than there is actual gold. So there's an inflation of the money supply. Well, since people are using those banknotes as money, yeah, there's like an inflation of the money supply, you know, just a whole bunch of these banknotes being created. And I think it was actually late 1800s, like every bank had their own banknote, and they're just all freaking banknotes everywhere. And then there was like a financial panic, and everybody went to the banks, tried to get the gold out, and they realized there was not as much gold as there was banknotes. Like, by far, like only a few people get their gold out, because that's really that's how much gold there was. There's a ton of banknotes, very little gold. So money's created because people, well, because it's paper, and people use the paper as money. Before that, it was gold. And we were kind of conned into using the paper banknotes as money because we thought it was worth gold, because we thought they were receipts, we thought that we could go to the bank and get gold, right? But no, that was not the case, and they found that out the hard way, late 1800s. And so let's explain some stuff right here. The cost of living. When money's created, you know, let's say just a house. That's just one example of something that is expensive. A house, okay? How do most people buy houses? They go get a mortgage, which means they're going to the bank and borrowing money and to buy a house. So if you want to do it the old-fashioned way, if you wanted to let me work forever for a long time, and then eventually try to get a house, this is you. This is old, you know, average Joe over here. He's gonna save a bunch of money, try to buy a house. That's gonna be hard. You know why? Because everybody else is just going to the bank to borrow money and buy houses. And the bank is literally just creating that money. So naturally, whatever this dude wants to charge for a house, he says, oh, 100,000. It could be a crappy old house, 100,000. Okay, whatever he wants to charge, guess what? People needing a house, you know, they'll go to the bank and get that. They'll do it. So this guy has no chance. I mean, there's plenty of people like him, but literally since there's certain things that people need in life. People need food, they need water, they need shelter, they need certain things. And with that, you know, people are willing to go to the bank and get a loan. And guess what? The bank just creates the money, boom. And it'll literally create as much money as the people need to buy the house, a mortgage, right? And, you know, that means that whatever these people want to charge, you know, the bank can create and, you know, let people borrow. And they'll go to the market and outcompete these guys who are trying to come in here with their just whatever money. And that's what happens. So it's like this, it's a losing game. If you just follow the pattern, it's going to be losing, because obviously it's continual, you know, if the money's created, people just come in there and borrow money and outcompete everybody, then for you to get a house, you got to go do the same thing and outcompete them and so on and so forth. It's a losing game. Everybody's going in debt like this. It's a terrible game. And so the average Joe is not able to compete with these guys who could just go to the bank and get as much money as they want. The average Joe who's trying to be a responsible person, not go in debt, just trying to do it the old-fashioned way, he cannot compete with these people. And to make matters worse, when this money's created and those people borrow it and bring it into the economy, so it goes in this guy's hands, whoever owns the house, and then he trades to somebody else, and so on and so forth. There's what I call trickle-down inflation, and eventually, the price of everything are gonna be high, for one, but for two, that means that it's really, your dollar can buy less. That's really what's going on here. There's a relative value between money and stuff. You know, you could say that people are competing for goods and services like houses by offering money, making offers, out competing each other, making higher bids and stuff. That's one half of it, but the other half is these people with the houses are competing for the money, you know, by offering stuff. So the more money there is, the less competition there is for it, you know. I'll show you this little example right here. This is something I like to draw all the time. Let's just say that's money. And this is goods and services. You know, there's a two-way competition. Two-way competition. These people with the goods and services, they want money. These people with the money, they want goods and services. So they're competing. So, you know, there's a lot of people with money that want any certain good. There's a lot of people with this certain good that want money. So they're going to be competing for deals with each other. And naturally, these guys are going to be competing for the money by offering more stuff, goods and services, you know, for money. And the opposite, people are going to be offering more money for the goods and services. So there's this thing that you can always see that's occurring. But the thing to take away from that is there's a relative value established. You know, per unit of money, there's a certain amount of stuff that's offered for it. Or per thing, there's a certain amount of money. So whenever those deals are met, there's a relative value established. You can see this like tracked all day in a stock market chart. It's the exact same thing. Offers being made for the stock, you know, and you can see the changing value all day, tracked all day. Same thing happens in the economy with any good or service. So there's really what I call a relative value that is being established and that's changing throughout the day. So it has to do with the supply of money and the demand for it by way of people offering goods and services. You know, so if there's more money available, and you know, about the same amount of people offering their goods and services for it, you know, that really want it, the same amount of demand for it, you know, it's kind of going to be a backwards type of competition. People will be offering less stuff per unit of money. You have to. It's a two-way street. Per unit of, okay, so if there's more money coming in, you know, people, like I just said right here, people will be competing for the goods and services by offering more and more money. And thus, there'll be more money per good or service. And you could say more money per unit of stuff. I don't know if you can say it like that, but generally speaking, the money will have a lower relative value. Does that make sense? It should make sense. Competition, look, competition is a two-way street. I'll explain it one more time because I want to clarify this idea. Two-way street. You could compete for money by offering more and more goods and services per dollar, and thus the money will have a higher relative value. It would be more stuff per unit of that currency, right? That would be a higher relative value. That would be lower prices of things, but it would also be more stuff per unit of money. It's a relative value. When you're making a deal, you're deciding how much of this for how much of that. Relative value of those things. It could happen between two goods. It could happen between two different types of money. But it can also happen between, you know, at the end of the day, money is just a type of good. It's just a different type of thing. It's when trades happen, relative values are established. And this has everything to do with supply and demand. If there's a little bit of money and a lot of people competing for it, they're gonna be competing by offering stuff. They're gonna be competing for a low supply, offering more and more stuff. So per unit of currency, per unit of money, it's gonna be a lot of stuff offered for it. You see what I'm saying? But if there's a big supply, if the money's just being created, the supply is increasing, there's gonna be a lot less stuff per unit of money. Does that make sense? Hopefully it does. And that's basically what's happening here. When the money's created, the supply is increasing, so per unit of money, you can only get so much stuff. Why is the cost of living so high? That's why. And this is just one example. Housing, you see the same thing with everything. Everything. So it's not just direct from the bank that causes it. You know, it also, there's trickle-down inflation. This guy will give it to this guy. This guy will give it to this guy. And they're all kind of higher in what I call this monetary food chain. And they're competing with everybody else at the bottom. Let's say this guy buys a boat, and this guy he just goes to a fancy restaurant, and there's trickle-down inflation. So the people in what I call this monetary food chain, the people who are high at the top, they could probably afford the cost of living. But the people at the bottom competing with all this new money coming in, it's hard. It's hard to make a living. And, has everything to do with money creation, the inflation and supply. So, like I was trying to say, this guy, if he's trying to compete with these people, not only is he not able to win, but the money that he's saving is devaluing. Its value is getting lower. Its relative value to goods and services is dropping. Because money's just coming in. Now he has $100,000 in his bank, where it could get you a whole lot of stuff. Now there's so much money, these people don't have to compete as much for it, so they're not offering as much goods, or they're not offering as much stuff for it. So per unit of money, there's less stuff being offered. So his money is less valuable in the economy now. You got to understand the whole thing, that relative value thing. That's key to everything. It is. It really is. Per unit of money, people compete for money by offering stuff. So per unit of money, they're going to be offering more and more stuff, and that money's going to have a high relative value. This piece of money can get more and more stuff. So money to stuff, the money's going to have a high relative value. And that's really what it comes down to, I guess. And that's really how inflation works. The supply increases and more money, people don't have to compete for that money as much, so they offer less stuff per unit of currency. It's supply and demand. It's simple competition. It's a two-way street. Supply and demand is a two-way street. The guy with the goods wants money. The guy with the money wants goods. Any specific good, let's say this guy has, I don't know, whatever he has. There's a certain amount of people that want any specific good. And there's a certain amount of people with any specific good that want money. And those people are they're competing. And everybody with money that wants that good, they're trying to get a deal with somebody who has it, a good deal. The people who have that good that want money, they're trying to get a good deal. They're trying to get as much money as possible. And so they're matching up, they're competing for those deals. And, eventually those deals are struck, and when they are struck, relative values are established. So it's kind of how inflation works. But there's also, what's important to know here is the bank, creating money through fractional reserve banking. Boom, comes this guy will get it, and then, first of all, the people who borrow it to buy the house, they're outcompeting this guy. That sucks for him. But then the money comes in through this whole process of it's trickle-down inflation, but also what I call the monetary food chain. So the people who are way up, they could probably afford the cost of living because they're getting money in their hands debt-free, and they're out-competing everybody. It's a really crappy situation. So for the most part, the top half, if you're in the middle ground, you might just it might be all right. If you're on the bottom half, you're struggling because you're competing with all these people that are just, well, first of all, you're competing with the people who are borrowing money and straight up and buying goods and services. Those people are in debt, so it kind of sucks for them as well. But the people who are right here, right at the mouth of the freaking the money funnel, you might say, they're going to hand that money debt free, and they're going to hand it to another guy, and so on and so forth. So they can, I don't know, but they probably are okay. They're probably all right. They can probably afford the cost of living. But as for everybody else, the further you go down, the harder it's going to be. And for a lot of people, that's the case. And, has everything to do with fractional reserve banking. The bank scamming us into using their banknotes that we thought were worth gold but weren't. And we're still doing the same thing. The Federal Reserve Notes of the United States, all these central banks that print money, any type of bank in the world today that I know of is pretty much doing fractional reserve banking. They're creating money, and they are the culprit. They are why the cost of living is so high. Yep. And I think I pretty much explained it pretty fairly. I thought, it wasn't the best straightforward explanation, but I think I got the points across. That's super important to understand, this supply and demand function, relative value. If you can super important. That's the key to everything. The relative values that exist and are established throughout the economy. It has everything to do with supply and demand. There's a low supply, a lot of people there's a high demand for it, a lot of people that want it. People will be they'll be competing for it by offering more and more stuff for it. And thus the money will have a high relative value. And before I go, I just want to mention this last part because it's super relevant. I don't even know if I mentioned in this video, but here's the function of money. If I trade this pen for $1, who can I then trade that dollar to? Is it anybody? No, it's not anybody. Can I go to China with my dollar and just expect anybody to accept that? No, I cannot. The only people that will accept my dollar are those people that are willing to trade their stuff for my dollar, okay? No money is universal. With any type of money, there's just a certain group of people, a certain amount of people that are willing to trade their stuff for it. So with anything that people use as money, there's this group of people that are willing to trade their stuff for it. And the more that group grows, you know, relative to the supply of it, you know, its value will go up or down. You know what I mean? If there's a fixed supply and the group's growing, the value of that money is probably gonna go up. So if I trade my pen for $1, who can I trade my dollar to? Anybody who's willing to trade their stuff for the dollar. If I trade it for Japanese yen, who can I trade the yen to? Anybody who's willing to trade their stuff for the yen. If I trade for an ounce of gold, who can I trade the gold to? Anybody who's willing to trade their stuff for gold. Silver, same thing. Anything, it's the same thing. There's a group of people that are willing to trade their money or their stuff for anything that they use as money. And see, so why would you choose to use one money over another? If I trade this for if I'm an American, I trade this for a Japanese yen, who can I trade it to? Who can I trade it to? Japanese yen to? Probably nobody in America, so I'll just be dumb.